Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Diving Deeper. And for today's episode, we're going to be talking about trust, and we have Jesus joining us today.
Hey guys.
So, I know today's episode is about trust, and I want to hear what you have to say or what you think about it as a personal thing before we really dive into it.
Before we dive in,
Yeah, just something like really, really brief.
Really brief. Well, to my understanding, trust is not a connection sort of thing. It's more of a behavioral sort of deal. So if I have inherent trust in someone or something, obviously I'm gonna have, a connection with that person or that thing or whatever. So in my opinion, in my perspective, trust is something that's earned and not given.
Okay.
Automatically.
All right. Well, you want to start us off? I know you brought something for us today.
Yes, I did. So, I was going on an article called Psychology Today, and it was written by Dr. Paul Thagard. I don't know, I probably butchered his name. And he defined trust as following. Trust is a central part of all human relationships, including romantic partnerships, family life, business operations, politics, and medical practices. And he went on to give the list five lists of what trust means to him,
Okay.
not what it's as defined as it.
Okay.
So, number one, trust is a set of behaviors such as acting in ways that depend on another. Point number two, trust is a belief and a probability that a person will behave in certain ways. Point number three, trust is an abstract mental attitude toward a proposition that someone is dependable. Point number four, trust is a feeling of confidence and security that a partner cares. And the fifth point, trust is a complex neural process that binds diverse representations into a semantic pointer that includes emotions.
Mm-hmm.
So, with that being said, a lot of the time, I'll give you guys an example.
Okay.
Someone of authority. Do you automatically trust them because they have authority, or because you were groomed that way to trust them automatically, only because they have authority?
I think it's both.
How so?
Well, in the sense that I do agree that in a sense we're groomed or we're shown that people of authority are more likely to be trusted or be trusted more than your average person.
Right.
But also, and I think this is also depending on where you live and what examples you've seen, is typically if they're a person of authority, not always, but depending, like I said, depending where you live, there's probably a good reason why they have that authority.
Right.
So I think it's both, in a sense where one, yeah, I do believe that I think almost everyone is groomed in a sense or taught that people of authority should be trusted or are more trustworthy. But also I think depending on our experiences, we can see someone of authority and also trust them probably to a greater degree than just trusting someone's word, who doesn't have a sense of authority. And I think this also applies when it comes to a profession, right? In a sense of if we see a well-named scientist or a well-named doctor, even though we don't really know the studies ourselves, we believe what they tell us because of the authority that they have.
And their background.
And the background. So that's why if they have a known background, they have a position of authority, I believe that we tend to believe them, even though, yes, the possibility lies that maybe it's not completely what they say.
Right. Okay, I understand that. So he also gives the example of, like how you were saying, a profession. Mm-hmm. He gives the example of if you don't trust your doctor or psychotherapist, for example, it is much harder to benefit from their professional advice. So let's say, for instance, if I go to therapy, and if I didn't trust my therapist, if I didn't trust my therapist in what he was doing and his ability to help me out, then his profession or what he's teaching, what he's practicing, is all null. It's all null, annulled. Not in the sense that he's doing it wrong, but it's more like you're not reliable
Yeah.
in a sense. If you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's I get what you're saying, and that's why I said it. Like, it really depends on like, do we know the record? Do we know?
Mhm.
Do we not know how they've been behaving with other people? But I do think that it at least holds some weight when it is uh, when they have some sort of degree. It carries something.
Right.
Now that doesn't mean that it's always right, but it does at least give you at least the notion that there is some that they have that knowledge.
Right. I mean, not all the time. I mean, I wouldn't say that either. But in my personal experience, trust isn't automatically given because I grew up with authority in the household, but I didn't always trust it. Majority of the time when authority was demanded and there was the authority in the household, it was shouted authority. It was like it was authoritative just for the sake of being authoritative. There was no real backbone to it. There was no real reason for my household to be so authoritative. So that's where I ended up having these vines of mistrust within the family, within the household. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's true that people with higher power have automatically get that trust because they have a certain background to them that basically gives them that privilege to be trusted. But there's other times that, say for instance, a father that's a failed father, he's not all automatically going to get trusted because he failed as a father, right?
Well, yeah, if the when the communication probably comes between obviously the child and the father,
Mm-hmm.
then yeah, I would say it's very broken,
Mm-hmm.
and especially I think in a sense of parents already have failing a relationship with their child. I think it's really difficult for a child to recover from that
Very.
because the reason I say that is just you as a child, you're very gullible,
Oh yeah.
and both in a positive way and also in a negative way. And so everything that you're told as a child, you're gonna believe it because it's coming from someone who's older than you. And that's usually how it is in the mind of a child. And even though sometimes we are taught that, but also sometimes it has nothing to do with people teaching us that as children, because even as children, when we believe our parents, we believe adults, we believe our aunts or uncles, like majority of the time we just believe what our older cousins are saying just
Right.
because they're older and we look up to them, especially as a young kid. I think we've, at least majority of us have had older cousins or older people that were still, teenagers or young that we look up to. And because we look up to them, we believe what they say.
Right. I mean, I had that growing up, especially nowadays. Trust isn't always around the household anymore, because you always just take someone's word for it. It's like, okay, whatever, it's fine. I feel nowadays trust is more watered down in a sense than it was used back in our parents' age. The trust back then was pretty much beaten into you, in a sense.
What do you mean?
Was when my parents were growing up, you were commanded to trust everyone, and if you didn't, you suffered consequences.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's there's a lot of truth to that and a lot of weight to that. I think when I was younger growing up too, is I think it's just the difference in the times that and the eras that we grew up. For instance, like in my parents, when I was growing up, when my parents would tell me it was more of like that's a given. You always trust your parents or any friend of your parents because they said that's someone who's reliable.
Right.
And growing up, like when you get older, you're gonna notice that that's not always true. You know, there's
It's very true.
whether it's on purpose, whether it's intentional or unintentional, there's a lot of things they're gonna tell you that aren't meant to be taken as the way that they're saying it, because it's not a trustworthy or a reliable source that's giving you this information, and it could be very harmful for many aspects of our life.
Right. I agree with what you're saying. It can be very harmful for someone growing up, especially as kids. If you don't immediately see positive things in the household, you're automatically going to assume that, you know, something bad's happening. You know, us as kids, as you mentioned it, we're gullible. We're gullible as all hell. So it's not so great when there's a shattered household and whatnot. And trust becomes very, very hard to find nowadays. Very, very hard. If you take a look at, I don't know, fatherless or even motherless households, you're always dependent on one singular authority in the house, when you should typically be two. You know, there's certain factors and whatnot, sometimes for only being one. And so you have to trust your mother or your father, your mother or your father, whichever one you have, that they're doing the right thing. Because if they're not doing the right thing for you, then trust is easily broken.
Yes. And I agree with you when you say that trust is hard to find, but it's also hard to give and receive.
Oh, yeah.
And I say that because sometimes what we are lacking is trust in people. Trust in the good that people can do.
Mm-hmm.
And this doesn't mean open up yourself completely to be shattered. Is recognizing and knowing that even though you trust someone, they're gonna fail. But the truth of the matter is that behind that failure, there's also we have to know what the intent is, and obviously we're not always gonna know what the intent is with maybe anybody or everybody. But trusting someone that has the best intentions for you, in the sense when it comes to family and friendships, because there was a pretty good I guess analogy that one time and it just came to mind right now, but it's an analogy about a child, his mother, and a doctor. So the mother takes the child to the doctor's office, and the child has to get his shots.
Okay.
So, you know, it's the whole process. We've all been there.
We've all been there, yes.
And we go to the doctor's office, we get our shots, and then you're very little, you're gonna cry.
You're gonna cry.
And
I cried a lot.
Yeah, and then you get a Band-Aid, you probably get a lollipop or a sticker, and then you go home. In the eyes of the child, they don't really know what's going on.
Oh no, we do not.
But we have this trust that in our parents when we're very young, that our parents can do everything and our parents are going to keep us safe at all times. And we don't have a worry or a care really in a negative manner about the world, because it doesn't apply to us when we're younger, when we're kids. So in the eyes of this child, if let's say they're in the range where maybe the mother hasn't explained to the child what those shots are for or what's going on, all the child sees is my mom put me in the car, took me to an office.
Full of strangers to the kid.
Yeah, full of strangers. We went inside of a room. This man put a needle in me, hurt me, and even besides that, I saw my mother pay him to do it. So it's like the child doesn't know what's going on. And many times I feel like that's us,
Right.
depending on the situation. We don't know what's going on. And maybe it may be something that we see as harmful or that can hurt us. And I'm not saying there are situations where it doesn't happen. There are situations where that happens. But sometimes it's that lack of trust trusting in other people, trusting in your family, trusting in your brother and your sister and your spouse, that
It really hurts. Really hurts the relationship.
exactly it hurts it more due to your lack of trust than what exactly is going on in the situation. It's not really basically the issue of having no trust, and it looks like my cat decided to make an appearance.
Special
So thank
guest.
thank you, Cupcake,
Thank you, Cupcake. You're allowed to stay here.
and come here. Just
Cupcake. Cupcake. Cupcake, come here, kitty cat. Or not? Okay.
perfect. But yeah, I think when it comes to trust, it's just I think it's both ways. Like you said, you have to earn it, but also I think we have to recognize that maybe situations in the past, and it's understandable that we're hurt, and it's difficult for us to open up and trust again.
Yes.
And I think every single one of us that's hearing this or seeing this, we've all been hurt at some point in our life, and more than likely in a very, very big way.
Oh, yes.
But that shouldn't stop me from being able to have a healthy relationship again. And the truth is, if we really, really defy or go against trusting because of the fear of being hurt again,
That we're never going to grow as a person.
exactly.
Because majority of the time, I'm gonna go off of what you're saying about trusting again. Majority of the time when someone gets really hurt, or like, let's say for instance, someone just got out of a 5-year relationship. You think you were going to marry this person, you were already planning your life out with this. And then for some reason, you split. And it's going to be extremely hard for that person to find someone else and love again. Why? Because trust was shattered. And it takes a lot of courage and a lot of self-confidence to build yourself back up.
Yeah.
And majority of the time, people just live a shadow of their former selves after that devastation. You know, it's sad to say, but majority of the time when someone gets hurt like that, they never recover fully. They either go off, become a party person, or you just never see them from them ever again.
Yeah, and it's hard. Like you said, it's really hard to recover because basically what you're avoiding is pain. Because when you lose trust, there's a reason why you lost that trust in the first place.
Yes.
And more than likely, the reason you lost that trust in the first place is because you went through a very painful experience. And like I said, all that stuff, it's understandable. You know, they're not the only ones, and we're not the only ones. But it has to come to a point in time where we went through that moment of sadness, and that's perfectly fine.
Mm-hmm.
But what's very important after we go through this moment of sadness is being able to pick ourselves up. And if we're not able to pick ourselves up, which many of us can't,
Right.
is to look for help. And that also, little by little, is going to take some trust, because you're already in a state of mind where you don't really trust anyone.
Exactly.
And you don't really want to open up to anyone because you're just like, well, what's the point of opening up if I'm just going to get hurt again?
Exactly.
But it's a crucial part to forming relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Not just romantic relationships, friendships, being close to your family. You need a sense of trust.
Yes. And I want to go into saying that, especially if I want to give another example, like two best friends stop talking.
Yes.
You know, that is obviously to many people. If you lose your best friend, you lose part of your soul.
Yeah.
And and to a lot of
It's
people,
hard.
it's very hard. Yes. And they just start bickering at each other. They start even hating each other, which sucks. So it's like, then this becomes a war with the people around you, because someone at some point is gonna get close to them, and they're obviously gonna have to choose a side, and then they'll try to win people over, and so that they can lose confidence in you, or trust in you, or other way around. So what I'm trying to say is, in that case, the enemy is not each other. We're all going through life. We're all pacing ourselves through life. So if we fall down, have the courage to, how you said, reach out, have someone pick you up, because coming from a personal experience, it's hard picking yourself up.
Yeah.
And that's why I was able to reach out and say, "Oh, can you help me pick myself up? Help me rebuild?"
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with that. And it takes, if anyone's listening and you might be in that situation, it takes an insane amount of courage.
Oh, yes.
And not courage because, and I'm not saying because it's hard to say those words, I need help. Obviously, it's not hard to get them out, per se.
Yeah.
But it's a battle within.
Mm-hmm.
A battle within because you might be anxious, you might be scared, you might not know the people, you might not have, obviously, you don't have trust in the people. But it's very important if you want to get out of that situation, if you no longer want to feel in such a negative way, it's important to reach out and ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
Because the reality is, we can't do it alone.
Oh, no, we cannot.
And if we go to Scripture, Scripture says it's not good for man to be alone.
Mm-hmm.
And in any sense of the way, like when it comes in a romantic way, it's not good for man to be alone. When it comes in a friendship way, it's not good to be alone. We're social creatures. We're social beings. And we have to talk to one another. We have to build each other up. I mean, Scripture says to build one another up. And I think that's sadly where we're failing a lot as a society,
Yes.
as a church, is that we don't take our time to at least connect 2 to 3 people at church.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes we go to church and we hardly even talk to people there.
Oh, yeah.
We go, we listen to the music, we hear the preaching, and then we're out.
Mm-hmm.
We don't take times to actually form a good relationship with someone. And sometimes that's what we're missing. Like you might go and you might be feeling bad and you might be feeling sad or depressed. But in reality, what you need is a relationship, or is a friendship, or just to hear those words to pick you up. Because the truth is, none of us on our own can do it.
None of us.
We don't have the strength to do it on our own. But God, the good thing is that God never calls us to do it on our own.
Mm-mm.
We rely on His strength, and we also rely on the church. The church, by definition, is a group of people.
Yes.
So, if God said that He was coming for a church, He's coming for a group of people.
Yes.
People who can rely on each other. And obviously, you're in a group, you have to communicate with each other. Scripture also says we're the body of Christ, and therefore we must be working together.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm not saying have an insane amount of friends. It's just
No.
you can at least reach out to 2 people,
Yes.
and you'll be, trust me, you'll be much better.
You'll see a difference a year later, how your behaviors change, or how you view the world, or
Mhm.
how your thought process goes.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I remember there was a moment in my life where basically I was living alone. I didn't have anyone romantically. I stopped going to the old church I was at for very specific reasons.
Right.
And I was in a rut. Like I had my family. Like I had my dad, my mom, my brothers. I didn't live with them. I lived on my own. But I didn't really like spend a lot of time with them, even though I knew they were there to help me. I wanted to get through it on my own.
Right.
And that was my fault, my mistake.
Right.
Was thinking that I can get through it alone. It wasn't later on where I reconnected with some old friends, because even though I had my family, like I didn't have that connection with a friend, because in that time where I was in this rut, I literally lost almost all connection and communication to my former friends. And so I just felt empty inside. Like I went about my day, I went to work, I came home, I did what I had to do. But at the end of the day, I just felt like it was an uneventful day, or a non-fulfilling day.
Hmm.
And it was because I didn't have anyone to relate to.
Right.
And when I was able to reach out, well, actually, they reached out to me. When they reached out to me, and I agreed, okay, we'll meet this day. My life turned around in a positive way,
Right.
because now, like, I was actually eager to see someone. I was eager to see my friend, like, and actually spend some time with someone and have a communication with them, and just talk, even if it was nonsense. Just talk with someone who I can smile with. And yeah, in a sense, I had to build on my trust again,
Right.
because obviously we had not talked for a long time,
Right.
and we not had a close friendship for a very long time, and it was something that was just feeding me in a positive way, emotionally. And I think we also have to do that when it comes to God. Sometimes we stray away, and God calls us out and calls us out and calls us out.
But us as human beings, we don't want to.
Exactly.
And that's one of the things that contributes to that is our stubbornness as human beings. Majority of the time, we want to do it on our own, as you said. We want to do it on our own. We think we're all that and whatnot. We have life figured out, and the truth is, we don't have life figured out. Without God as the forefront of our lives, we're just gonna be lost every single day.
Right.
And as you were saying, every day is just gonna feel like an every other day, non-fulfilling, with this very big void in your soul, in your heart, and you're just gonna be like, "This is my life now. What's next? Oh, just going back to work. Cool, nice." And how you stated earlier, we're social creatures. We can thrive on meeting other people. Some of us will. Others are like introverts and extroverts, but that's a different topic for another day. So it helps us going out and meeting people. Now, I'm not saying automatically become friends with the person you meet next. No. All I'm saying is go meet people that will have a positive impact on your life. And there's nothing wrong with being open to new things in that sense. What I'm trying to say is trust in that form can be easily shattered. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But you can rebuild.
Yeah. And like I really like the fact that you brought the whole introvert extrovert thing, because even as an introvert, which I believe maybe many of us watching are,
Yes.
we still have a community. And I'm speaking as someone who likes to game. Like, we have a community online that, even though I don't physically know them or talk to them, I message them,
Right.
right? And I get to see their messages and how they reply, and it's some form of communication, which, even if we aren't extroverts and really good with actually meeting people in person, then there's still ways that we can actually go about it and actually talk to people, even though it's not in person or physically. Yeah, I think there's a lot to be, I think, worked on in ourselves when it comes to trusting, and also being trustworthy.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, unless you have anything else to add on, I want to add these little things here that I found online. I thought they were pretty interesting.
No, I don't have anything
So
particular right now.
So there's this site that I found, and it talks about trust, and it gives us 4 things that help us. Well, it kind of breaks it down into 4 sections. And then after those 4 sections, little things that help us within those sections to actually build our trust, trusting other people, and being trustworthy as well. So it's credibility, reliability, intimacy, and self-orientation. So those are the 4. And for credibility, it has tell the truth, which is obviously very important.
Very, very important.
If you want to be a trustworthy person, you have to tell the truth,
even if the truth hurts.
Even if the truth hurts, or it's something obviously we don't like, even for ourselves.
Oh yeah.
We have to tell the truth if we want to be a trustworthy person.
Yes.
This will also help our credibility. Admit when you don't know something. And even though I think I like almost everyone that I've talked to, I've always told them it's better to say I don't know than make up an answer.
Oh yeah.
And like I've told many people, sadly, like I've seen that a lot with like older people, older culture, or like really, and it's really sad to see, especially when it comes from like someone you look up to in a form of, for instance, in our walk of faith, that instead of them actually saying I don't know, they'll give you an answer completely made up.
Oh yeah.
And then when you ask them, you know, where is it at in scripture, or how did you come to that conclusion? It's sad that sad to say that a lot of times they don't have anything to say. And I'm a firm believer of saying if you truly don't know, just say I don't know, because I know, yes, even though you don't have that knowledge, I know that I can trust you, and whatever I ask you, you're going to tell me the truth, because for the things you don't know, you're going to say I don't know.
Yeah.
And that's why I like telling people that, it's like, if you truly don't know, just say I don't know, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
You know, if I acquire the knowledge later on, then good for that too.
Good for that.
But don't claim something to be true if you truly don't know it yourself.
Exactly. There's no shame in admitting that you don't know.
Right.
There's absolutely no shame. And I think that's one of the main factors in contributions that say, "Oh, I don't feel right saying I don't know," or "I'm shameful that I don't know," because they're gonna look at me all funny. But there's nothing wrong with not knowing.
Yeah, I mean, no one knows everything to begin with, so why should you be ashamed of not knowing to begin with? You know, and also it has right here, number 3, admit when you're wrong, which is hard for many of us.
A lot of us.
I mean, if we're honest, no one likes to be wrong. So
No one wants to be wrong. Everyone wants to be right.
everyone wants to be right, and that's fair. And for reliability, it says, if you say that you'll do it, then do it. You know, don't say that you're going to do it, don't do it. Don't say that you won't do it, and you end up doing it. It's basically stick to your word. If you say that you're going to
Do it.
if you're going to have a goal, like, take the steps necessary to get there. Now, you might overshoot it or undershoot it in the time, but the important thing is that you actually do it. If it's a goal that takes time, and actually I believe most goals actually take time, so
Yes.
take the steps necessary to actually do what you set out to do.
Exactly.
And this is going to help you, you know, being a reliable person, because that way people know that, hey, whatever he or she says that they're going to do,
they're going to do it.
they actually follow through with it.
Yeah.
Number 2, they have, if you're meant to do it, do it. So it basically means that if you're meant to do something as a part of a role at work, then do that. Don't let it slip onto someone else's plate or try to get away with not doing it. Not only does this frustrate people, it suggests you're not fully committed. People won't trust that, and you can or will do your job.
Yeah.
So
that also hurts your credibility at a
exactly.
job.
Oh yeah, especially at a job. So if that's what your purpose at that job is, or whatever it is, or your purpose in that group, then follow through with that. And I think another important thing that it mentioned here is, don't put it on someone else's plate.
Oh, don't.
Like don't blame someone else. Don't say that it was their fault, or put or shift the fault onto them. You know, like it said earlier, when you're wrong, admit when you're wrong.
Yeah. Especially when people love to point fingers at, especially in a work environment. Everyone wants to say, "Oh, he did it," or they told me to. It's like, no, the blame's always gonna go on whoever didn't finish it.
Yeah. Yeah, and then for intimacy, it has 3 that I really like. Is extend trust to others. So that's how we were talking about earlier. It's actually giving trust to others. Like if you want people to trust you with their honest insights, you know, maybe we have to do that and share that as well. And one thing that I heard, I forgot where I heard it, but it was like if you want to have a closer relationship with someone, tell them something you're afraid of. Because now they know one vulnerability that's yours, and that forms a connection of, hey, this person trusts me enough to have that, to basically give me something that that could basically tear them down.
Right.
And they trust me with that information, and that in a sense builds a more intimate relationship, because I trust you with that information.
Right.
Enough to let you know, hey, this is harmful for me, or like I'm afraid of this. but I know that I can trust you with what I'm telling you. That you're not gonna use it for my harm.
Exactly.
So, I think that's a very nice thing as well.
Yes.
And another one, it says include others. You know, for intimacy, you want to include. Obviously, you want to include someone else.
Obviously.
You cannot build an intimacy without including someone into your circle, into your group, or obviously if you're in a romantic relationship, you have to include the other person as well.
Obviously.
And also it says watch your reactions,
Ooh.
and I think that has to do a lot with like just sort of checking yourself.
Self-discipline as well.
Yeah, and
Because I've always gone way back in the day. I would always let emotions guide me, and I know that's super bad, especially nowadays. And majority of the time, I would act before I think, and that's super bad. I know.
Yeah.
So we have to learn to shift that focus, and then what's it called? We gotta learn sometimes to think before we act, because if we just act out of pure impulse, we're never gonna have anyone close to us. Never.
Yeah. Yeah, and it is obviously it's a lot that you have to work on for yourself, but I think it's very important, and I think it's a good skill or a good habit to have or attribute. I don't know what you would call it, but it's good to work on all these things basically to better your own life. You know, I mean, you're the only person that's going to live with yourself forever. So obviously might as well work on bettering yourself.
Yep.
So for self-orientation, it says give others a chance to talk.
Oh yeah.
And I think we probably all been a little guilty of this, where we just either talk over someone or talk too much or lead the conversation too much. And there's nothing wrong with actually leading a conversation if necessary, but also knowing and giving them a chance to talk.
Right.
And knowing when it's my chance to talk or when it's my time to talk and when it's their time to talk. And respecting that time. And respecting what each other has to say.
And don't rush them either. You gotta hear them out before giving your
Yeah.
input on it.
Yeah, let them speak their mind. Let them speak what's bothering them or what they see or how they view things. You know, a lot of times we learn from what they say. You know, whether they have more or less time in whatever field or maybe in life, we can learn a lot from their point of view, or at least we can learn where they're coming from and why they're holding those views. And number 2, it says listen with intent. So it's not just listening or hearing them out.
I have to go out the other ear.
Yeah. It's actually taking the time and listening to what they have to say with an intention to basically take what they're saying into consideration.
Right.
Because I can listen and pay attention, but it doesn't matter if I pay attention if I don't take their words into consideration.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to take what they're saying to me, because that's even if, like, for instance, if they tell me that they something really outlandish, I can say I believe you, that's what you saw, that's what you feel, that doesn't mean that's what it is, but you know that's how they feel, and you acknowledge what they're feeling, and acknowledge what they saw and what they know, and just come to an understanding that it's the way that you're gonna build that trust with it. And number three for this one, it says, and it kind of basically just talks about admitting your mistakes, but this one says take responsibility for your failures, and I think we all have a lot of those.
We have a lot of those.
But the important thing about failure, it's not bad.
It's not. You learn from your failures.
Exactly. And the truth is, if we're not failing at something, then that means we've reached the pinnacle of where we are. And the truth is, none of us are perfect.
No.
So if we reach basically a pinnacle at that point, or basically what we reached right there is a plateau, and now we're stagnant and we're not growing.
Yeah.
And that's not where we want to be. We always want to be growing. We want to be learning more, doing more, moving up. And it's important for us to apply all these things to our lives. And also want to add one psalm here. In Psalm chapter 56, verse 3, it says, "Whenever I am afraid, I will trust in you. And the word trust, at least the definition that's, I guess, mostly used, it says a firm belief in the reliability, truth, ability, or strength of someone or something. So, to have a firm belief in the reliability of the truth, I will trust in you. I will trust in you, God. Above all things and above everyone and anything, God is never going to fail you. God is always going to be there for you. And God is always going to be there to help you out in whatever way that you need it. You know, sometimes it's not what I want, because if I'm admitting it, like, of course, I don't want to show people that I need help.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to show that, but that doesn't mean that I don't need to show it. That doesn't mean that I don't need their help. See, God is there to lend a helping hand, but it's up to us to actually take that hand and recognize, hey, I can't do it alone. There's no way I'm going to get out of this alone. I need your help, God. And whoever you put in my way, in my path, to help me through this situation, to help me get through this, I'm going to have trust in you, and I'm going to have trust in them. And, of course, this doesn't mean trust blindly. I would never recommend that.
Don't.
But trust in what is true, trust in what is good, and trust in what is right.
Yeah. Going off of that. Trusting in God is always going to be the biggest thing you're going to do in your life. You can trust others, sure, but they're always going to fail you because they're human and because they're not perfect like God. They're not perfect like God. And so what I want you guys to take from this is that put your trust first in God above all things, and all things will be given to you. You know, you go through life saying, I trust myself, and I'm only going to trust myself and no one else. But the truth is, you're never going to outgrow your surroundings. You're never going to grow as a person if you keep up with that mindset.
Yeah.
You know. And that's the thing. A lot of the time, people want to keep themselves in that mindset because they've been hurt, or they've seen things, or they've done things that really shattered their faith, or that really shattered their trust. So, trust God, and don't trust. Trust humans as well to a certain extent. Those around you.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Well, I think this wraps up the episode for today. So make sure that you like, subscribe, comment, whatever you want. On this episode, we'll be adding the email down in the comments so you guys can send in questions if you guys want certain questions answered or just certain topics. And whatever time you're watching this, have a blessed morning, blessed night, blessed evening, blessed afternoon. And I just wish you all the best, and God bless you all the time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.